I'm currently standing next to a massive intersection of two major roads just west of Utrecht in the Netherlands. I actually was halfway across my journey to Utrecht and I stopped midway just because something about this intersection surprised me so much. Reason? Well, this reminds me a lot of the intersections where I'm from in New Jersey. The roads are huge, there's lots of car traffic. It's not a highway, but it's also not a small street. It's this like massive dual carriageway type road. And yet, for some reason, when I crossed this junction, I didn't feel unsafe at all. In fact, it felt like the safest junction I've ever crossed in my life. So when I found out that by Dutch standards, this is quite a problematic intersection, that blew me away. I basically just stopped halfway across my journey to find the answer to the question, what makes this junction so incredibly safe? Let's find out. So first off, where exactly is this junction? Well, it's in a place called Woerden. It's like your average Dutch town. It's not got the appeal of Amsterdam or Utrecht or Rotterdam. It's just a town that's kind of in between places. And that's kind of why it reminded me so much of where I'm from. I didn't grow up in a big city in America. I grew up in a small suburb of Philadelphia. And one of the big parts about living in my hometown is that there are some pretty big, fast roads that intersect and cut through it to get people to where they need to go. When I look at these two roads, well, they're not highways. They're actually the Dutch designation right below a highway. These are pretty big major roads for cars to be going to and fro. And yet, for some reason, I actually felt safe crossing these. And the similarities don't end there. In New Jersey, we're known for having the turnpike. It's a really clean, fast road that goes directly from north to the south of the state. Basically, the best bit of infrastructure we have in New Jersey is for cars. I didn't live on the turnpike, though my elementary school was literally backed up against it, but I lived on a bypass road. Essentially, the roads that you take if you don't want to pay the toll of taking the turnpike, you can always just take normal big roads next to it and meander slowly along, or fast, just illegally. One of those is basically where I grew up. Now these two roads behind me actually act as a bypass because there's a major highway just over that direction for cars to get around faster. And a bypass in this area was never built, so these big wide roads act as that. So essentially the people that live in this area are pretty similar to where I was living in New Jersey, with one big difference. You want to know what the difference is? Do you want to know what it is? Well, there's a lot of them, so I'm going to point them out now. The first big obvious difference is the crossings. Where I'm from, you don't really get many safe pedestrian crossings, and if you do, they don't usually have a complete network, so the sidewalk will just end and then you just walk across grass. Whereas around here, it just feels like every single part has been thought out and thorough so that there's a fully connected network. These here are called shark teeth, and they're pretty much my favorite Dutch invention. They're an easy way to tell who has the right of way on any of the roads. If the teeth are facing you, sharp, you don't have the right of way. You let them keep going, and it actually follows a nice line similar to the style that they have in Britain. If you're an American, you actually might be seeing these if you have any new roundabouts, because the roundabouts that they've been installing all over the US recently actually have these Dutch shark teeth, which is pretty cool. In Britain, they have a bit of a convoluted set of dashes and dots, almost as if it's some sort of Morse code. However, the British do like their system, so I'm not going to complain about it right now. Even at this part of the junction here, you can see that cars coming in need to yield or give way to any cyclists currently in the cycle path, which also is very easily seen at speed because any cycle paths are a different color pavement. In the Netherlands, they're usually this nice red tarmac color. The more natural visual aids that you can provide a driver, the fewer accidents you're going to have. But there's an important distinction about these cycle paths around this junction. They have this sign next to them, which if you're a British driver, should actually make you happy. British drivers get very angry because they always see cycle lanes and they see the cyclists on the roads with them going, "Oh, why aren't you actually using the cycle lane?" Well, usually they have their own issues, that's a separate video, but it's because under UK law, cycles are allowed to share the highways or roads with cars, for the most part. What this sign here designates is that this road is mandatory for cyclists and mopeds. You are not allowed to go on the dual carriageway with your bike or moped. You have to use these. This way, cars and bikes and mopeds do not interact, thus fewer accidents. But even if you are someone that wants to travel by bike along the carriageway, as you can see, they also have an entire cycleway just for cyclists and mopeds to travel this direction as well. So it's a win-win. And now I'm going to cross the junction just to show you how this goes. And, well, there we are. It really was that easy. And even though, look at this, we even have a cycleway going on the other side of this carriageway. So you have basically a lane in each direction on each side for cyclists and mopeds. A lot of times the way this area is designed is that they actually have a whole network of cycleways and different paths and slower roads that navigate around so that you don't have to share the space with cars. As this isn't the most ideal place to cycle. Like, obviously it's all well and good to have a fully connected pedestrian and cycling network within a city or a dense urban environment. But we're not in a dense urban environment. A giant lorry just passed by. That's, I think, the thing that's blowing me away the most. This is in the middle of nowhere, like where I'm from. And yet we still have a crossing, which actually has an island over here to allow for safe passage. It makes you feel as a pedestrian and a cyclist like even if you don't make it across in time, it's okay. You're not just going to get hit by any car. Beep, beep, indeed. As an added bonus, every single one of these little spots here actually have a feet detector, which is detecting if there are any cyclists here. If not, well, also have a button I can push, which signals to the system that I would like to go. And then a countdown starts, and then eventually I get my green light. These Dutch crossings in particular are always outfitted with these black and white candy cane designs, which are very visible for drivers driving at speed. But when I talk about speed, I think it's probably important to note why this is such a problematic junction for Dutch standards. Because as much as I can be like, wow, look at this place, so safe. It turns out this is also called by locals the racebaan, because people have been just racing up and down this road, which does remind me of where I'm from. But rather than deal with the issues of people running the red here, going over 50 kilometers an hour and causing accidents, well, the Dutch just installed 2 speed cameras at either end, and guess what? You're way less incentivized to speed and cause accidents if you're going to get fined for it. It's all well and good to have laws and rules and be a society, but if the rules aren't enforced, nothing really changes. The rules weren't enforced here. The people would run the reds, and so they had to add extra technology to make it so that this was a safer junction and they could enforce the law. And so if I look at this junction and compare it to how it would look if it were from my hometown, I don't have to look too far because I visited somewhat recently and recorded lots of video showing how New Jersey gets around this sort of junction. We usually do a jug handle, which is one of our cheeky little inventions, which is essentially like one leaf of a 4-leaf clover intersection. The difference being, as you can see, it's pretty much exclusively used by cars. There aren't any pedestrians walking around because it doesn't feel safe. There aren't any islands, there's not very good signaling. Even in some of the safe parts of South Jersey, we have to have signs reminding drivers that it is New Jersey state law to stop for pedestrians. And some societies are more accepting of the status quo than others, and others actually fight for what they want. It's not like the Netherlands was always like this. They had to actually go through a huge amount of protest in the 1970s and onward just to get some safety on the roads. And it's not like they just stopped there because, like I said, by Dutch standards, this is actually quite a dangerous junction, but the people nearby protested. They put signs up in the middle of the road, and eventually they got their voices heard. They put up loads of noise-canceling walls because this is supposedly a very loud junction. They put speed cameras at the other end and enforced it, giving tickets to drivers that treat this area as a racetrack. And the people here are now a lot happier. What's upsetting to me as an American is it's not like this information is hard to find. And it's not even like even my hometown doesn't know this information, because I actually read documents that they put out every 7 years on like how the state is doing, how the area is doing, what they could do to improve. And they always seem to understand what safe, livable streets are. And yet they never have the budget, because it's always wrapped up in different parts of bureaucracy in New Jersey. And even though a lot of people are aware of the problem, even those that are in charge at the local level, the regional level has the control of the budget in my home state and most of the US. And so they don't usually play ball. And so nothing ever changes, and the money always goes elsewhere. But the thing is, the biggest reason why this whole place feels so incredibly safe and comfortable is because it's meant to. If you were invited to dinner at a friend's house, and when you got there, there was no food, and he didn't give you any forks or knives, you'd kind of go, oh, that's weird. I guess I don't feel too welcome in this place, right? Yes, that's the point. And so when you get up to a junction as a pedestrian, as a person on a bike, as a mobility user, and you have no safe way of crossing, you are being told intuitively from the infrastructure, you are not welcome here. So the more that that is not invested in society, in where I'm from, in the UK or anywhere, then the more that people aren't going to choose that type of travel. Every time I visit the Netherlands, it always ends up being like a really sad thing in a way, because I'm always like, God damn, why don't we even have some of this in London of all places? But it also makes me sad just because I do wish that this type of infrastructure wasn't some sort of luxury thing that you have to visit other countries to visit. It's infrastructure. This type of shit's boring, right? The more frictionless the systems around us, the more time we can actually spend thinking about things we actually want to think about. Not thinking about roads. No one should have to think about this. This has kind of been solved already. We should just put this style in, job's done. Well, it's because people cycle here. Yes, but they cycle here. They take mopeds here. They take their wheelchairs here because they can, because they are given a safe way to do so. If you build it, they will come. And so they built it, and boy, did they come. When it comes to places like this, Woerden in the Netherlands and Deptford in New Jersey, a lot of people often say, well, they don't need public transit. Nobody lives there. Does it look like nobody lives here, right? There's a lot of people. Even if there wasn't that many people, they still deserve a safe way of crossing a road, right? Or an easy, frictionless way of getting around. Sure, you can't prioritize the most rural, tiny farmland areas all the time, but you could at least make a start, right? If you always make excuses for why we can't have nice things, you'll soon find you never have any nice things. The thing about good infrastructure is you shouldn't really have to think about it. It should just work. You shouldn't pull over on the side of the road because you're surprised that a junction's safe. You should just go through it and get to where you need to go. I'm hoping that in the future, that's how pretty much everywhere can be, and we can all focus on things that are a lot more important. This has been a fun little stop on my little road trip to Utrecht for my next big video. So hopefully I'll see you then. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next Sunday on my YouTube channel. Goodbye. I'm doing that British thing again of being on the left lane. I'm sorry to the Dutch. Oh! Guys, when you accidentally take 2 ADHD pills instead of 1, this is the type of video you get.